kind of moving towards a little bit about the Out of the Fog program, and facilitating that program. It's made such a difference in terms of people's well-being, in terms of people's mental health. What do you think is, because we've talked a lot about the problems, or the things. In what way is this program helping mums? How do you see that seem to help with all of these things?
No, the same conversation we're having, the fear and the nervousness about being connected and vulnerable with other people is so prevalent, and when a group is working well and a mum and the group is able to share and feel the experience and shared emotion that somebody else has had, it's so powerful, because that's not something they're experiencing, or I'm not experiencing in my day-to-day interactions with others. So when you can come together in a group and sense somebody else's experience that is representative of your own, it's really significant.
Yeah. So I mean that, there is that, and often we experience that fear of our mums sometimes, in order to get to group, in order to agree to go to group. It takes a huge amount of courage in the first instance, doesn't it? So there is that fear, but that desire to be well, that desire to connect, pushes them forward. And if they can, be brave and do that, they're usually rewarded, aren't they, by that connection with other mums. But it's scary. Yeah.
Yeah, when I'm pitching the group, when when we do our assessments and I'm explaining what the group's like, I explain that each week there's a topic that we discuss, and you get a workbook and you work through it, and the content of the workbook is wonderful, and it really helps you do that self-reflection. None of it's overly complicated, but it asks the right questions to get you thinking about your own thoughts and feelings and your own choices that you're making, and how can you implement change into your life in small stepwise things that don't feel massive, because sometimes you're like, I have to do this and I have to do this and I have to do this, and because it's week to week, you kind of get that chance to explore just one part instead of it being like, here's 10 things that you need to change in your life. But I'm also pitching it, and you get this workbook, and that is wonderful, but also the reason the group works is because you get to connect to other mums. And I know it's scary. The thought of doing a group and talking about your deep thoughts and feelings seems pretty overwhelming, but actually that connection is what's going to make you feel not so alone. And I love it. We sit in group and someone very bravely, normally in those first couple of sessions, says something a little bit out there, or a little bit like I do this, or and then there's people and they'll be nodding, and you can see that relief on the woman's face of, people actually behave like me, and I'm not alone in this chaos that is my life. I sit there still, like every group, I don't know how many groups I've run now, but every group I sit there and I'm like, yeah, I felt like that too. And just hearing things and just being like, yeah, okay. So and I just love that you watch people's faces. That's what I like to do, and just how they just go, oh, okay, that's okay. And it can get better. And
it'll be something like, I'm not really sure I really enjoy being a mom, and then like the lights go ding 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 ding, like me either, and I'm not sure I like it either, and all of a sudden it's this like moment, or I've been a little bit angry at my baby, or a little bit frustrated with how things have been.
Yeah.
Like real
And
basic
the
moments.
irony of it, or I don't know if that's the right word, but is that, by sharing these honest feelings, often they're, because they've got a place to express it, they actually have the ability, they can kind of go back into their lives and manage much better because they've had that opportunity to express that scary feeling or thought or whatever it is in a safe space and
Yeah.
not be judged for that, just experience acceptance and connection with others and other people relating to how they feel. So it's that kind of, almost going back into your life, not feeling alone because you've got
Yeah.
you've got these other people. And I think often what I really love is when they continue their friendship after the group. I love that. Because and a lot of them will say, oh, it's so hard, I just don't want group to finish. And, and so I often encourage them, get together, put a WhatsApp message, chat or whatever, or, carry on having video chats or whatever works for you. Keep that connection going.
The other
Yeah.
part is I often say, look, you've committed yourself to group, which is commitment to yourself and to each other. But you've actually given yourself an hour and a half out of the week that's actually yours. And I'm always like, I really encourage you when group finishes to continue that hour and a half for yourself. Like you've made time for yourself, and you're all telling me that you're too busy, and mum life is hard, and it is. But actually, if you can carve out that time, hold that precious. That is your. If Monday, you have to tell your partner that Monday night group goes for 20 weeks, so be it. But hold on to that extra hour and a half for you.
I think, because obviously now I'm not really facilitating groups, I'm supervising you guys facilitating groups. But, when I was doing groups more often, one of the things that I really felt was a common theme, and you'd probably agree, I think you'd agree, was that, often they would walk away with this overwhelming feeling of self-care is important, and and the ability over the weeks to find ways to build it into their life and into their day. That's kind of, I felt almost like that was the overarching theme. And I think that's super important because often they kind of come into it thinking, well, I can't get my needs met, it's just impossible, everyone else's needs are just too overwhelming, and they don't have a choice. The baby needs these things, so there's no room for me.
I'm not allowed to think about myself. I think that's the main one.
Or even how, but how do I even do that in practical? And there's often I just can't. There's just no way. It's just, but they leave having found ways, and they leave having given themselves permission. And they leave feeling like it's okay for me to meet my needs, and my needs are just as important as everyone else's. That's what I think, and also knowing, and there are ways I can do it, and having explored those ways.